Hey, check this out. Look who popped in tonight. He's part of the ESPN True Hoops Network. Spencer Ryan Hall from Salt City Hoops. Dude knows everything, right? Am I right? Of course I'm right. About the Jazz. We're going to dive deep. Part of the ESPN family of, do we call them bloggers? Or
yeah, that's
that
not.
Kind of Salt City Hoops
no one
is
takes
what
offense
you
at
go.
that.
Yeah, but you're all part of that whole.
Yeah.
You and I were just commenting that 5 years ago, what you do didn't even exist.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I feel
crazy.
lucky that I got in kind of on the.
Yeah, well, good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, he's big with the Jazz in the Twitter world. You can follow him at Salt City Hoops. And I got it, first of all, when the Jazz went into Phoenix, remember 3 weeks ago, and they had ridden that 4-game win streak. Suns aren't that good, right? And they lose. They've been out of sorts ever since then. What did you see tonight that maybe, and granted, there's a lot of basketball to go. I get that, Spencer. But they sure looked a lot better this time than the last visit down there.
Yeah, I don't know. And we talked a little bit about this beforehand, but it seems like the best roster decisions come after injuries, that it almost feels like when the decisions are made for the team, then the guys set up. It's just clear that they need to clear out some roster spots. That's the only thing that's going to keep them from.
And the only way they can do it now is by someone getting hurt.
Yeah. The other thing is, it seems like they don't have any middle ground. They're either rolling and playing like a team that looks like they could compete in the West, or the wheels come completely off. There's no middle ground. There's some nights where you think they might lose by 60 if they keep playing like this. And then a night like tonight where they look like they could beat any team in the league.
Tomorrow, after they go to Denver, who knows what we'll get out of that. We're talking about a lot of people being used. 10 players in double-figure minutes, which is a little bit unusual for the Jazz. 9 of them with 20 or more. One of them actually was at 19. Favors at 32 minutes. Is this what you're talking about? What addition through subtraction? You know, guys can't play, so maybe they spread out the minutes. Do you like seeing a lot of minutes go to a lot of guys, or would you rather see a tighter?
Well, early in the season, I thought that was going to be their strength, that they would be able to kind of do like Memphis did a few years ago, where they can just come in waves and do line changes, and then they didn't go with that, and so guys have been languishing on the bench. So now it just seems odd. Here we are at this point in the season, all of a sudden guys are getting minutes when they couldn't even sniff the court earlier in the season.
And there's no consistency.
There's no way of knowing before a game what's gonna happen.
We got to talk about Paul Millsap too, because I mean, so much has been made of this coming up. You know, the trade deadline that's on the way. Who goes? Is it Millsap? Is it Jefferson? Is it any myriad of big guys? But Millsap, Spencer, one thing you got to give him, he's tough. His line tonight: 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 stitches.
4 stitches, right?
He got knocked around, and he played well. You got to admire that.
Yeah, I think when we see him playing like that, with the energy, the Kenneth Faried type thing, I feel like, I said this the other day, that when Kenneth Faried came into the league, he sort of stole that identity from what Millsap used to do, the undersized kind of guy. Faried's a lot bigger, but when we see him getting out and just kind of wreaking havoc, that's the rest of the team responds to that. And I don't know why we've seen a different Millsap so many times early in the season, where he just seems lethargic, he doesn't seem interested, he doesn't seem, that's not the Millsap that we've come to love. And then so much criticism has gone towards Al Jefferson at the same time, when I feel like he's actually been one who has...
Well, he's always consistent.
Yeah, he's showed up a lot more, but Millsap kind of has the luxury of being a favorite player for a long time.
You were talking about the idea of 3 big men as opposed to 4, and Cantor's hurt tonight, so he doesn't play, so they are down to the 3 big men. And, I mean, you made that point. Tell me more about your thinking on that.
Phil Johnson, Coach Phil Johnson in the postgame show on the broadcast mentioned this, and I noticed it during the game, that they just seem to play better when they only have a 3-man rotation. They can put Favors in at the center spot on defense and just let him patrol the paint. He just clogs everything up. You saw that run that the Jazz went on. That happened when they had Favors patrolling the paint and locking things down. It just seems to give them a better defensive identity.
Phil notices that. You agree with that. It makes sense to me. Don't you almost feel like there has to be a move?
Yeah, I don't understand. The thing that my only explanation, because I don't think there's any rational explanation, from the eye test or the stats look, there are moves that are obvious that need to be made. The only thing that I can explain is that maybe they're looking for trade value and trying to give guys time that maybe aren't in their long-term plans, but to keep their trade value high.
But I mean, teams know who these guys are. I mean,
you'd think. I don't know. That's my only explanation. I can't come up with anything.
All right. A couple other things to talk about then in this game. Points in the paint were ridiculous. Now, that's kind of a Jazz hallmark, because they are a tough team. They have all the big guys. 60 to 28. When numbers start trending that direction, Obviously, that bodes well for the Jazz, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and in fact, I read some kind of analysis stats-wise that the Jazz, their real offense comes off second chance opportunities. And so when you see numbers like that, that means guys are getting offensive rebounds, they're getting multiple shots in the paint and making it happen. That's the only way the Jazz are going to be able to compete, you know. They've been shooting a lot more of the three-pointers, but we saw tonight one for 9.
Well, they hit one.
I think. Yeah, they don't need it. If they can get in there and I mean, everyone's playing small ball now in the NBA, but the Jazz have all these wealth of big men, but they don't score in the paint always. When they do, we see that tonight it makes the game easy for everyone.
Which is why it becomes lopsided at times for the Jazz.
Yeah.
You talk about active hands and that kind of thing. You and I were talking about this before the game, and Nate brought this up as well. I want to say 10 steals, 9 or 10 steals, or maybe it was 11 steals for the Jazz, 20 turnovers for the Suns.
Yeah.
Again, when they start getting their hands out there and they're knocking away the basketball and that, I don't know why you can't see it every night. And you said yourself, there are some nights they seem more interested than others. They seem very interested tonight.
Yeah. Well, and the point guard play makes a big difference too. When the Jazz point guards aren't turning the ball over, it makes all the difference in the world. I don't know. We saw some things from Tinsley tonight. I love watching him play. And early in the season, he had the best assist to turnover, not the best, but I think he was top 3 in assist to turnover ratio in the league. And then he's had some stretches lately where I think he's just getting tired. Some of the passes he's making, I think his idea was there, but his body just quite didn't match up. That's my explanation for some of those passes. But
given them what you're saying, it sounds like you're not overly concerned with the news that Mo Williams is going to be. So I guess he's out of minimum 6 weeks with the thumb.
Yeah, I mean,
because there's some. The first night he was out, Spencer, they looked horrible. In the last 2 games, they've looked fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, I think, with the older point guard situation that they have. And Watson's still coming back from some injuries. They're just going to get inconsistent play at the point guard spot. That's just going to be how it goes. My thing from the team at large is that they are what they are. They kind of are a 500 team that has a lot of room for improvement. And the way that some of the fans, I think, are jumping off the bandwagon, it's like the team is, an affront to all decency of everything that they're doing, and it's not true. They're not that bad.
Well, and doesn't
guys
the
to follow.
schedule favors them?
Exactly.
Right, at this point, right, going forward.
Exactly. A guy that writes for my site did some analysis, with back-to-backs and travel time and
of their opponents.
Right, and how that predicts kind of win percentages and things.
Okay.
He predicted that the Jazz could be at 16-23 in January and still.
Which, by the way, they're ahead of that.
Right, they're far ahead of that and could still finish at about 44, 42 wins and be competing for those last couple of playoff spots.
Well, and then
which isn't good news to some fans.
No, yeah, you're right. 'Cause when you just said that like competing for the last, I'm sure there were some fans at least going into this season thought they were going to be a 4 or 5 seed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't realize how good, and I'm one of them. You may agree. The rest of some of these other teams in the West are playing, like Golden State.
Golden State's looking great.
Even Minnesota's playing a little bit better. Teams like that. That's probably, I would think, going to make it a little tougher for the Jazz.
Yeah, I thought both of those teams were going to falter. I didn't think Minnesota was going to play well. I didn't think Golden State was going to play well.
Crazy. That's the NBA.
That is.
Spencer Ryan Hall on Twitter at Salt City Hoops.
That's right.
You following my son, right?
That's right. It's been great.
For some reason, his Twitter handle is at Andre Le Renard, which is Andrew Fox in French.
I figured it was something. I didn't recognize that.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. Do you hear the story about BYU? This is crazy.